The stock market crash and the potential collapse or near collapse of the euro and the dollar will open the door to global governance and the birth of the new world order. The president of the European Central Bank, Jean-Claude Trichet, has already called for global governance of all financial institutions to prevent another financial crisis like what is happening today. He believes that an international set of standards need to be created.
For global governance, it is extremely important that we, in this new ownership of global governance, have, particularly on both sides of the Atlantic, the implementation of the same rules in the same fashion, not to create the sentiment between us on both sides of the Atlantic that we are not in the same universe, which would be probably a very big mistake. And also, with all the friends that are coming from the emerging world, not to give the abominable example, then after having created the G20 as the prime country for global governance.
Needless to say, if such an international governance is put in place, it will fulfill yet another important end-time Bible prophecy, which talks about a one-world economic structure that will be in place in the last half of the 7-year tribulation period. The world will have to be in close to total financial turmoil or chaos before people living in sovereign nations will be willing to partake in such a system, which will undoubtedly lead to the nullification and replacement of individual countries' constitution. Many of us by now are familiar with the phrase order out of chaos.
Some take the position that the implementation of a new world order is a planned and orchestrated event by super wealthy elitists who want to take total control over the entire world. That may or may not be. However, what is certain and easily verifiable is that the ancient book called the Holy Bible foretold of these coming days in the last chapter called Revelation.
Us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
A new world order.
My latest friend just died. He agreed with everything you have just heard Glenn Beck say. Keep in mind that Glenn Beck was actually talking with the elite. The individuals that I know, the two that have given me this information over the years, they are amongst the identical same group that know everything that goes on behind closed doors. What you have just heard Glenn Beck say are nothing in the world but blatant buzzwords from the elite. And they later will say, after it happens, we told you so. Didn't you listen to Glenn Beck? Didn't you listen to Lindsey Williams when he played that, what Glenn Beck said? Now, what did he say? He said, get food. He basically said, get out of the stock market because it's going to collapse. He talked about the demise of the dollar. He talked about what people are going to do in panic. Now, I hope you'll listen to this many times because being on a CD as it is, you can go back and listen to these things over and over. So all I'm trying to say to you is I learned many years ago when I lived with the elite of the world, and in my contact with two of these elite over the past 35 years, I have learned to tune my ear and my brain to understand the buzzwords that the elite are giving. And if I could state in light of what my elitist friend said before he died, if I could put a word of agreement with what Glenn Beck just said, I would say you had better listen to these buzzwords because I think that they came directly from the elite.
Over the last 2 years, Europe's bailout of Greece, Ireland, and Portugal were largely motivated by an unacknowledgeable desire to avoid banking problems of continental proportions. As of March, according to the Bank for International Settlements, German banks held $522 billion in Greek, Irish, Portuguese, Spanish, and Italian debt, and French banks were owed $672 billion. Some of Europe's most prominent financial institutions are dangerously exposed. American banks have $678 billion in direct exposure to European banks. Given Wall Street's close transatlantic ties, a European banking crisis would soon spread to the United States. Moreover, financial interdependence runs both ways. French banks have $122 billion in US-based banks. German banks have $119 billion. If European banks get in trouble, they will bring some of that capital home. Anecdotal evidence suggests it is already happening. And whether US banking capital gets tied up in Europe or European capital is called home, that means less money available to US borrowers at a time when the US economy is struggling to gain traction.
Us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
Thanks for watching. Click the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel.